Welcome back to the Trevor Teichman Show. Today, I've got my brother Sam Teichman here, firefighter, always here to talk the other side of the fence. We saw Grammys, Final Four this weekend, coming up on a big game tonight, and a whole lot of other topics. Let's dive into it. Did you watch the Final Four? It was pretty good games, pretty good atmosphere for some fun times.
Is it wrong to say that the reason I watch these sporting events is because I have a mother-in-law in town and so she wants to watch it?
Yeah, you're supposed to like sports. You're supposed to want to see them. There was some great games. We had North Carolina actually came to play. Duke, unfortunately, Coach K retirement.
Watch that.
What did you think about that? Do you think old Coach K needed to get out of there? He had quite a hitch in his giddy-up. I hope he's doing all right.
Well, let's say so. I don't know. In reality, I don't follow it well enough to know whether or not Coach K is good, bad, or whether he's failing. What I do know is Duke has been in the playings for as long as he's basically been there. So is it him or is it...
End of an era. I mean, from my whole entire past, it's Coach K is Duke's coach. It's similar to North Carolina. His coach that big coach just retired last year. Are you a retirer? Do you think you take it all the way to the end if you're in an atmosphere super related to people and your time on task begins to fade? If you're recruiting, maybe that's the deal. I mean, recruiting is a big deal.
It takes a lot out of it. You got to imagine I have to imagine that's like most of his off season is going around and trying to talk to people.
Sure.
Even if it's boosters. Like, you're not just recruiting, the next season of players. You're also recruiting the next season of boosters.
Right.
Yeah, get out there and get in front of people and get some money. Like, you're making cash for the
But how tied up is your identity? I mean, you retire.
100%.
Does that end your identity?
Yes.
Right then?
Absolutely.
Hey, Coach K, we'd like to set up an interview. Oh, you retired.
Right.
We'll get you here every now and again, but you're sitting at home by yourself, watching TV, watching basketball games. I don't know, man.
Like, I worry about me. If someone decides to, we'll put on the pretend cap for a second, that I was a fantastic basketball coach and I retired. I imagine I dip into a little bit of a depression. I'm sitting at home on my own, watching Duke play.
You have to have a plan B.
Well,
what I mean by a plan B is, I personally am like you. I don't think I could do it. I am a person that would grind through the suck until I croaked. And unless I had something extremely compelling that I wanted to do next, I don't know that I would ever stop.
So I literally just got done having a conversation with a bunch of firefighters who are desperately concerned that once we retire, and they're coming up on it, once we retire, we're no longer firefighters. Who are we?
Yeah, you have an interesting job profile because it's, in a sense, you are put with that position in a time at which you're not dead. Retirement for firefighters, what, is in their 50s?
Yeah, ideally, and partly just because it's hard work on the body, and you don't want a decrepit old man coming up and trying to rescue you.
Sure, I mean, if you have to pick things up, you got to move around, you got to have a good cardiovascular system, not to mention the sleep factor, all those years of not getting great sleep. I just can't imagine that. Well, I mean, stick on task here. You're going to be set up with that in your 50s.
Yes.
You're going to have to figure out, what are you going to do with your identity?
Well, so we talked about it. Like, what do you do? And it's a plan B to the T. Like, you have to have an exit start. Like, you're not exiting to exit. You're exiting to start something else.
Right.
And I think if you don't start something else, you find yourself going crazy.
I've been in a really unique situation. I started this K-Bands training when I got out of college. And I've actually went through I've made card games. I started this business. I worked at a gym for a long time. And I've kind of been really fortunate because I know a lot of people in their 50s and I have interesting perspective on that idea of retirement. And I think that would be my advice to absolutely everybody would be, I almost think you should live your life in cycles. You should be regenerating your life because you get reinvigorated every couple years. Maybe your platform's a decade. Maybe it's 8 years. Maybe it's every 15 years. But if you don't have the ability to almost start over and have a whole new engaging concept, it's the electricity that runs through your body when you start a new thing. It's unbelievable. And one thing I would tell you is you talk about, or I've read tons of books and listened to millions of podcasts on super successful people, and the way that they talk and the energy they bring, it's always on the next thing. And I've felt it a little bit this podcast, for instance, we're 40 episodes in, we've been cruising through, doing an awful lot of work on it, and you just get electrified by your motivation, by the way you feel each time you start the next thing. So, is that, you're right. Do you give these guys advice that says, hey, what is your next thing going to be? And it doesn't mean sit in front of the couch. If you want to live life.
Right. You have to pick something to live on. So, maybe we'll just start there. Do you find yourself getting agitated in your so you've been in this box, we'll say, you're doing this job for 3-4 years. Do you find yourself getting agitated in that box and starting to look to your next thing? Or do you just get inspired and you're like, I got to find a new thing now?
For me, it's almost when you're in the entrepreneurial side of stuff and trying to build a business. I don't know if it doesn't get to the point at which you thought it would, so it's on to the next thing, or if it's actually just my own mental capacity is I've taken this as far as I'm engaged enough to do. I don't know. I don't know which it is, and
well, do you find yourself exiting mentally before it's actually done? Like, I know that you're still running the K-Band's like online experience and you're selling stock and giving people, what I can tell is a very good like education for, athletics and treating their body well through multiple ages.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of evolved. I don't think that I would ever leave anything. It's more of, how can I help more? How can I be more engaged? The audience, in my opinion, I've kind of been talking in front of a camera since 2010, talking to people that I thought were there, and apparently they were there. So now that I'm into this podcast thing, I feel like it kind of just opens the door to not just a dad or a young athlete trying to train. Let's talk to everybody about other types of settings and maybe things that they may be interested in, or things that I could maybe help them with, thought processes, DIYs. I just think there's so much more to talk about in that podcast world that's really invigorating. And I don't know that it would be for everybody, shooting videos and editing videos and editing and editing and editing. That can be very time consuming. But as I've come across more people that come to that retirement age, unless you want to sit in front of a television and be a bump on a log, you have to have some kind of a thing to go to. Do you have a backup plan? What are you thinking is going to be the next step? I mean,
well,
50s is getting closer for you. You
like
just
next
had a
year,
birthday, and you're like old.
So I will say indigestion, I think, is the first step I'm going to come to at retirement. But I find myself spinning my wheels in the exact same scenario you're talking about. Like, I don't want to leave firefighting and just be like, all right, now what? I would rather leave firefighting to go do the now what. And right now I do have plenty of years, so I don't have to be there.
To do the what before you leave.
Right. Well, I mean, you want to be set up to hit the ground running, and you can't hit the ground running from the starting blocks. You actually want to hit the ground running having had the starting blocks 1 or 2 years ago.
Right.
Like, we'll say I'm retiring next year. Like, I would expect something like this to be the beginnings of a running block. Or if I wanted to start a sales job, I would want to make the contacts necessary to start those sales things like a year ago. So yeah, I think for me, I absolutely want to be thinking about it a year or two before, maybe 5 years before I actually retire. I'm not near that yet, so I give myself a lot of grace right now, but it's coming, and it is concerning. I think about, like, what do I want to have when I am 55 to look back and go, ooh, made that mistake. And I've started asking. Like, we've got a lot of people that have just retired at our department. We've got a lot of people that are retiring. And I ask every one of them, like, what's your plan? What are you doing? Like, you retire today. What are you doing next week?
Do they all have a plan or no?
No, like some do. And I'm like, that sounds really cool.
Is it money driven still, or is it literally just, well, my plan is to relax and just chill?
It's all of the above. We've got some that are money driven and that, like, they've got to continue to produce an income above and beyond what their retirement will provide for them. We've got others that are like, I know I'm going to be bored. My wife's still going to be working and I'm going to be sitting around at home. And so I think one of those guys went into sales of, like, fire equipment, which was great. He knew his stuff really well.
Right.
And so he actually ends up making a lot of money as a salesman, because if anyone has a question, he can not only say, this is what I think, this is what I use, this is why it's important, but he can also then give you the specs of the actual equipment he's got on his truck. Like, it's a no-brainer for him.
Right.
But I do find myself sitting there and thinking about the individuals that, like, I just want to retire, go fishing when I want to go fishing, like, live that vacation-y life. Whenever I want to go someplace, I can go.
The thing that I find to be the most frustrating thing about the idea of a retirement would be, if you don't have any income, I don't care who you are, if it's zero income, you could save your whole entire life. And then when you get to be 60 years old and you go, man, so basically I literally can only sit in my living room and watch TV to pay all these consistent bills that I still get.
I mean, you're saying I worked my whole life to make sure that I can just survive for my whole life.
Right. And I wonder if it wouldn't be, I'm not some money guru or any of that kind of stuff, but it would be interesting if you looked at it and maybe towards the end of your career, you're forced to look at that. I'm always forced to look at what the next thing is. When you think about it, what if the general consensus is teaching a child, or, we've got kids, wouldn't it be a better idea to teach those kids that says, hey, get your job, make your money, set it up to where you can help sustain your family and your quality of life. And then what you should be doing throughout your career is finding another income stream that is more geared exactly to what you want it to be. So you feel retired, you feel the bliss, but at the same time, you still maintain an income and your quality of life can be much better. I mean, how many weeks can you really go on vacation? I don't know anybody that's just on vacation.
I was going to ask you that exact question, because last time I went on vacation, went to a great resort, like by all accounts, it was beautiful. And I found myself sitting there going, I don't know if I can do this for 7 days. Like, it was just 7 days, and I found myself going, oh, God.
Was it just you missed work, or just you never got to unplug?
I don't know. I don't know what it was. I remember sitting there going, if this is what retirement is cracked up to be, maybe I just die while working.
Well, it's the reality of it, though. I mean, I find to where if I'm not around people, for me, my personality, if I'm not around people, I honestly am just extremely bored. So my retirement requires people.
Right. No, that's so I did try and consider it. Like, what is it that I'm actually looking for in retirement? In my head, it was like, I like sand. I like beaches. I prefer beach over mountain. I prefer, being out in the ocean, being those sorts of things. I preferred all that stuff. I enjoyed the people I was hanging out with. Like, I had a great time with my friends that went down there with me. It was all of the right things. Like, if I were to pick, like, holiday best of, it would be great friends. Don't have to think about food. I just go to food wherever. And this is all inclusive. I'm selling you on all inclusive right now.
All inclusive is the way to go for sure, always.
So that's what we have. We have an all inclusive. We're on beach and we've got best friends. Like, bam, that's it. Yeah. I've hit the touchdown.
Which either means you need more money than you ever thought, because you have to pay for everybody else. They didn't think ahead. So you got to pay for everyone to have the experience. So are you willing to do that?
No, I'm absolutely not.
So you're staying at home. You're staying at home.
What I'm getting at is I'm staying at home, and I'm gonna live on my couch, and every 5 years I'll go on Cancun.
Yeah,
vacation.
we'll have to figure this out. I don't know for sure if there's any right answer. Most of the time, it just depends on what the kids end up doing, financial obligations.
But well, let's set it aside.
Your job. That's what
Let's set it aside, and let's say you're creating your dream vacation, which we'll assume will be your dream retirement, which. Already, I'm going to warn you, I think is not right. But your dream vacation that becomes your retirement, what does it look like? Where are you?
I think
beach, mountains?
I think I would like to go to beaches. Okay. I like to ski while I still can. I'd love to snow ski when you can, but once a year is fine by me. I don't need to go 10 times. Beaches twice a year, and then it's just an awful lot of water stuff on local lakes would be ideal for me. I'm building that. That's my.
But you're describing the lifestyle that is like, I have no responsibilities.
Yes and no. I mean, if you can work remote, or you can do different things where getting off work at 2 or 3 o'clock, or you can work earlier in the morning or later at night, freedom in schedule, depending on what jobs there are available. The more and more people can become remote and you can get out by 2, there's an awful lot of days still to be had by 2 p.m. So to me, I don't know that I care to not have anything to do. I just want to be able to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. So in a 7-day time span, could I work on a Sunday? If it's raining, sure, why not? Could I get something done on any given weekday if it's bad weather, or can I work in the mornings before it matters? Like, to me, that's the ultimate goal, is find the freedom of a job that you can do that you enjoy, that still allows you to have all the hobbies. But hobbies is something that not everybody has, and I find hobbies extremely fulfilling. And if people don't have hobbies, and not to pick on chicks, but I feel like moms and wives, they lose them all as soon as they have kids. Main focus on the kid, which is completely understandable, but it is kind of an interesting dynamic when you look between men and women on how that young child thing happens. Women are okay with getting rid of all hobbies. These are my hobbies pretty much instantly. And I don't know. I find that most of the guys I know, it seems like it takes a little bit longer to get into that kind of world to where kids are every aspect of they are the hobby, you know?
Yeah. I'll disagree with you on two parts. One, I've got a guy friend who, when he had kids, like he was all in. He's like, whatever my kids do, I'm in. I want my hobby to be their hobbies, and I just want to enjoy it. I will say he's got the best relationship I've ever seen with a dad and his kids. So that is Exhibit A.
Yeah.
And Exhibit B would be, I've talked to so many women who have done kind of the quintessential, I kind of gave up my hobbies to do these things with my kids, and they all have the either we'll call it regret, or we'll call it like I've lost my identity, and this whole, like, we won't say a breakdown, but like a full re-examination of like, well, who am I without kids? No matter where the kid is, whether it's like the kid's in diapers, the kid is in youth sports, or the kid's leaving the house because he's going to college. I've seen women in each one of those scenarios trying to determine, like, well, I was told that I had to do this, or I felt like I had to do this, and they don't anymore. And now they're in the exact same. So I don't know that it's male or female oriented. I think I have benefited by just assuming that someone else will get really involved with, I love my wife. Like, I just assumed that she would get involved with the kids. And so, like, I've been a terrible person and just kept up with my stuff. But I've seen her even try and keep up with hobbies. So all that to say, I think hobbies are good for a person, no matter the age, being like a kid, because that's when we're teaching them hobbies.
Right.
A middle adult, which would be people with kids. And then now we're talking retirement, where I have nothing else to do, and my hobbies are basically who I am. So what happens then when your hobbies have to change? So you get an injury. Every hobby you talked about was like, I want to go skiing. I want to get out there and do this thing. Like, this scares the heck out of me. If I get injured bad enough and I can't do those hobbies, like, how do you pivot?
You know, I think it's actually figuring out what you like in the smallest micro level. Because, for instance, I'll give you a boating example just because I really do enjoy it. But I learned a long time ago that you could have the most amazing experience. Imagine you've got all the right friends around you. You've got the best skiing water. You've got everything that you wanted. Adrenaline's to an all-time high. You throw down some of the best runs. You're learning new tricks. You have an amazing experience. And then the next weekend, you think it's all going to happen again. It all lines up. Same folks on the boat, same thing going to happen. And then your expectations are like of glory, the best thing you've ever had, the best experience. And then somehow the day was just different, whether it be someone had something going on afterwards, or they were juggling a schedule, so they weren't quite as engaged, or everyone wasn't as excited.
There's a little bit more wind today, so people were a little bit colder.
And you also have like someone got hurt, now all of a sudden it kills that. But with those things repeating, what I discovered is I really enjoy outside and listening to music. And when I made it the most micro element of it, I just always enjoy it. So if you took it away from me, would I be kind of, ugh? So I had this neck injury last year. Okay, You remember that?
I do.
And when I had the neck injury, I couldn't do anything that I love to do. I couldn't do it. I have a pretty unique schedule where I could go out and ski later on in the day. Or on the weekends, obviously. And what was the worst thing ever that could happen was a neck injury in July.
Right, because it means you've got, you extend the thing all the way out. Like, how many months do you, let's say this, what's your cutoff month for skiing?
So I could ski if it was in the mid-50s, the water was, in a wetsuit, and which probably gets me maybe the first week in November will be the last time I ski in a year.
So July injury, August, September, October, like that's 3 to 4 months of no skiing.
Yeah, so I didn't do any, I took almost 4 to 5 days off and still got out there, didn't change anything, because for me, I had this epiphany a long time ago when I went on trips and different things, that as soon as you repeat a trip, and it's not the same, it's like, what happened? Why don't I feel the joy of what I was supposed to feel? I mean, but when you take it down to like such a micro level of oh, the breeze in my hair, the music I'm playing. That's why I always go around with like Bluetooth speakers. Everybody always counts on me when I go on a trip to have it, because that is my enjoyment. My enjoyment is at the most micro level of listening to some tunes outside.
We stopped bringing Bluetooth speakers because, one, ours were always smaller than.
Yeah.
But two, like, it was like, why would we double pack speakers when we know Trevor's bringing a blaster?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I always did was I took the micro level of joy, and then I make sure that that's what I achieve, and I can always achieve it, and I can always have a great time.
So you've busted your neck. You can't go out and you can't actually ski. So your
I
micro level is what? Music and being outside. So where do you get it?
So I was still on the boats watching other people ski.
And still a
watched them
blast.
ski and still had a great time. And after about 2 weeks off, all I would do is slalom. So on, the chair, you can jump, you can do flips. There's so much variety and things you could do, but I didn't do any of that. I literally just slalom skied around and drove it around because it feels like you're flying, and got out there for maybe 15 minutes, and then I'd get a little tightness in my neck and I'd stop. That was it.
So you tone everything down to the micro, the bare minimum.
I did that for 5 weeks. 5 weeks. I did nothing for 5 weeks.
Still joy.
Had a great summer.
Oh. Well, I mean, there could be a lot to that. I will say this is one of my favorite, do you call them a Trevorism? Like, it is one of my favorite things that you've talked about lately, where you have this like aside where you're like, we're going to Florida shortly. I went to Florida last year. It was one of the best times I've ever been to Florida. Like, I loved it. It was the right group of people. It was the right time of year. It was the right, the ocean. Like, I've never been to Florida and had such perfect water as we did last year. So I'm sitting here thinking about that and thinking about this truism that you have.
Yeah, the water's going to suck this year.
It's going to be terrible. We're going to have grass and grass and grass.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be terrible.
But that's a prime example, right? I mean, if
It's
the water
exactly.
sucks, there you go.
Right. So I'm sitting there trying to think, like, all right, so I know that this year it would be silly to compare it to last year, but what are the micro things? What are the things that I'm excited about that no matter what will still be there, that I can then think this is a great trip to Florida? And so, yeah, I'm sitting there trying to think through that list. What's your list for Florida this year that helps it be better, or at least what it is instead of what it was last year?
It's kind of interesting. Like, I've read so many self-help books, and I reflect on things a lot. I try to do all this meditation stuff that you hear people doing, but I just think that you got to think through any problems that you're having, make sure you have a conclusion, and then it allows your body to kind of relax. And if you can get to that level of just having all the P's and Q's in a plan, for me personally, if I know what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve, I have no anxiety about anything.
So
because I know what I'm driving for. So then in like a trip format, if I'm going on a trip, I'm not worried about all the things that I didn't fix. I'm not worried about all the things that I left unturned. I'm not worried about some things that I left undone with work. I'll work 20 hours a day until they're all done for me to go. Because when I get there, I'm going to unplug. Mm-hmm. And I know I will not do anything for 7 days. But I didn't used to be that way. I used to never even go on a trip without working 24/7 the whole entire time I was there, and I was miserable because I couldn't actually get anything done. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to have fun.
Well, I remember being on the beach and you answering a phone call. Like, because people call with customer service complaints or questions or anything, and you pop off and lean over and take your windblown phone call, and then come back and then try and like figure out where the conversation has gone since you've been gone.
Right.
And I remember watching that 2 or 3 times in that summer and just being like, that sucks.
Yeah, you don't really, I mean, when you run your own business, and it kind of is what it is, you find it's almost like everything's on steroids in your life. It's all too much. It's always too much. So when you figure out how to manage too much, and if you can win and you get to a place where you can manage it, it makes everything so much simpler that then you have to follow a plan so you don't blow your brains out. Right, so like, this is my template. This is how I manage all of my things. And as long as I push through them all, I can find joy. I can be happy.
Right. So your template sounds like this year is same as previous years. I'm fully unplugging from work.
Yeah.
Works off. Mm-hmm. When you go there though, what's on? What do you replace work with?
Well, when you don't have anything that's, kind of stick in your head of like, I forgot to do this, I didn't do this, I need to do this. So what if the whole world's going to come to an end? Unfortunately, just experience. And over time, I've learned that it's not that bad and it's not that good. So you almost become an old dog over time. You get more and more experiences, and all those little cliche sayings all of a sudden have more and more meaning, and they're real. What do you know what the quote was that Tom Hanks, and it probably wasn't his quote, but he was in some kind of an interview that I had seen recently, and I'm actually going to butcher it and probably couldn't even tell you the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, this too will pass. This too shall pass. And then he puts it in a format of positivity where, this is great, but this too will pass. And then when it's bad, this too will pass. And it's kind of interesting, like a lot of those types of innuendos or those sayings, as I've lived life, they all become more and more meaningful. I get a kick out of comics in the same way. When you listen to comedy, the old deal where, the woman's always right. Everyone has always cracked jokes about that. Yeah. I've been married and been with my wife.
Happy wife, happy life, all that kind of thing.
Sayings. It's just kind of funny as time goes on. I've been with my wife for, I don't know, since like 2010. So it's a long time. Or no, 2007. So when you start thinking about all these different years, it's not that you don't care anymore. It's just you don't really care particularly about what you're wanting in there. So sure, do whatever you want. I don't actually have an opinion.
A fight that you would have had 2 years ago because you thought you had to die on every battlefield.
Right.
You're like, I don't even need to storm this field.
Right. But it's just kind of funny. Like as time goes on, it's like all those cliche style comments and things, you could bullet them out, write them down, and find your top 10 and start reading those every day. And every single year, they seem to have a different meaning every single time. And I don't know, when I go on trips, that's what I've already experienced disappointment of like the most epic trip. Like, why was it not so good? Why was it not as good? I'm so bummed that it wasn't the same. And then for me, my saying was, no day will ever be the same. Yeah. Every day will be different, no matter if the same people are there, no matter if it's the exact same experience. If you live life like that day is its own unique experience and it's going to be its own thing, God, you have a lot of fun.
Well, I want to take that to a place because I know that you remember for a while, my wife and I would have our combined birthdays at Funky Town.
What a time.
And we would go to, Funky Town's this great place where we would, I feel like I'm plugging Funky Town right now.
I mean, you kind of have to. I mean, it really is a diamond in the rough. Truly.
It's a dive dance bar where you listen to like, 70s, 80s hits.
Has a Michael Jackson performance to this day. I mean, can it get any better, really?
Bubbles. They got bubbles that fall from the ceiling. Like, this is a trash place that is so much fun to go to.
Sure. But so trash, you mean amazing.
As everyone does when they say trash place.
Right.
So we're going to this place first year, don't know what to expect, have no idea, have a great time. It was wonderful. Second year, we're thinking, that was great, let's do it again. And I remember sitting there thinking as I went, we got to up it this year. Like, there's no way it's going to be as fun unless we like up it. And I didn't know what to do, and I found myself getting like nervous, like, oh, this was a bad idea. I shouldn't have done a back-to-back year on this. But at the same time, like, I knew it was so fun, it had such potential. So I find myself sometimes when I'm expecting something to be anywhere near what it was before, then I'm ruining it before I even get there.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the other saying you could go with, which is, something along the lines of you can't overcharge it. You know what I mean? Like, we got to make it just as good. We got to make it just as good. We got to, and all those pressures and things, but it doesn't have to be that way. If it's just, it's your own experience. It's going to be a new time every time. It just,
so that I think is the part that I'm not gung ho enough to up it every time. I'm too lazy for that.
And you don't have to. It doesn't have to be.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. So I've realized that my better space is to just enjoy it for what it is each time. Like, let it be what it is and don't expect more out of it. And so I don't know, maybe that underrates everything that I'm doing all the time, but I have found that I put way less pressure on things and I don't anticipate greatness only to find just under greatness, and then I'm disappointed.
Well, the fake it till you make it saying.
Okay.
Love it. Love that saying, but in different applications. So imagine, fake it till you make it. You know what everybody in the whole world should fake it? You should fake enthusiasm. I feel like in my own life, if you get jacked up about stuff, interact with your children. If you have young children and you interact with your children and they are extremely enthusiastic, watch a kid open a bunch of presents and look how fun it was for them and how much you enjoyed giving them presents. But if you look at it from like this is how these gears turn. When you look at it for what it was and why it was so epic for them is because they'd never experienced it before. It's a new thing for them. So every time they get a new thing, they're jacked through the gills. But when they're jacked through the gills, how much fun is it for everyone else in the room? My daughter used to open presents, and she doesn't do it quite as much anymore. And I almost need to remind her about how exciting it was for her. She would be so excited on every single gift she was opening, and everyone in the room was glowing. It was like so much fun to watch someone feel that much joy. But when you start seeing what makes people happy, it's that you are extremely engaged, you're looking someone in the face, and you are over the moon for whatever they have to talk about. And when you play with your kids like that, it's so much more fun. So when you have conversations like me and you are having, it's so much more fun.
It is that, but I find myself, like, as you're talking, like I'm knee-jerk fighting this, and I'm sitting there going, at some point, don't you fake it so much that like you just feel hollow? I'm not that person.
But I understand what you mean, and I don't really mean it from like an insincere place. Have you ever been excited?
Can't think of a time.
Exactly. When you were excited and you felt those feelings, you feel the same feelings as everyone else feels when they're excited. It's how the body feels.
Mm-hmm.
So if you allow your body to feel that and get engaged with whatever you're doing, quality of life through the roof.
I mean, I will. So have you heard there was a study that was kind of done on happiness, and they did a happiness for introverts and extroverts. So this study basically was trying to determine, like, is an introvert happier being an introvert, or is an introvert happier being an extrovert? And they, after going through the thing and doing the questionnaires and stuff like that, while it drained an introvert more to be around all those people, acting like an extrovert actually made them happier. So it was more exhausting. It was more input. It took a lot more out of them to go do this thing. But the activity of being enthusiastic, the activity of being around other people, the activity of being charged by other people and just faking it ended up being a thing that provided more happiness per self-reported questionnaires than if they did their thing, which would be, be a little bit more secluded, be on my own, read a book or something like that. They had less energy. They spent it. It took a lot out of them to be that way, but it did provide more happiness.
That's interesting. Do you think that you would actually have to be around more people? Like, what I mean is, just because you're enthusiastic and you're enjoying those type of things, and our example was around other people, but I don't know that you couldn't do that on your own as well.
Just be enthusiastic about the thing you're doing.
Yeah, solo. When you experience the book you're reading, do you allow it to like bring you joy, or do you read it like a dead duck? And you move through the pages and you're like, that was a pretty good book? Or do you tell someone about the book you read and it was probably one of the greatest books I've ever read, and feel those feelings? I mean, that's the thing that I think I've taken personally is happiness is contagious.
Yes.
And if I'm not exactly the most happy, I feel like I can be a lightning rod for everyone around me because I like to be happy and I'm selfish. So when I'm around everyone else, if you ain't happy, I'm going to try to make you happy because I don't want to be unhappy, because unhappy sucks.
I imagine in my head, there is a psychologist watching this going, oh, that brain is so broke. I need to talk to that man. Like,
you think so?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like that kind of extremity has to be dangerous in some way, shape, or form. We'll find out in 10 years.
Yeah, maybe the wheels will fall off the bus. I don't know. I
am a lightning rod. You know what comes from lightning? Fire. I am going to burn this thing down. Like,
you could be right. Maybe it's all bad things. I really just try to take things for like the smallest possible and feel the goodness in things. I think being around little kids has really changed the way that I've done things a lot. I have so much fun with my 4-year-old. But it's because I'm like extremely engaged and I try to do the things that she's doing. And, the fake it till you make it thing, I could see where that seems a little sinister but it's not really faking it after you understand what you're doing. Oh, you're just having a great time.
Right.
This can be fun if I let it be fun, or if I think about work the entire time, this isn't fun.
Right. I think that more speaks to whether fake it to your make it is the thing that's driving it. It more speaks to be present wherever you are.
Yeah.
So if I'm
put it on the bullet. Where are we at? You know what I mean? Bullet.
Be present wherever you are.
Be present. Fake it till you make. But
this too shall pass.
This too shall pass. But think about the fake it till you make it in that world. You make a good point. You could look at it one of two ways: fake happiness, or you think about it, fake it till you make it. Quit thinking about work. Fake it. You don't have any stress at work, right? You're not stressed out at all. I'm not stressed out. I'm having a great time with you. That, you know what I mean? Like, that's the fake it. Let me fake the stress. That's not that doesn't bother me. Leave that all alone.
Or for the very least, and I think this is the part that maybe opens it up for people that it's hard to imagine not having that stress, is just be like, that stress will be there when you come back to it. Allow yourself the next 20 minutes to just enjoy this.
Sure.
You'll go back to that. That's given. Like, you can't avoid the fact that you got bills to pay and stuff to do.
The be present might be actually a better way to articulate fake it till you make it.
You know what? Let's go back across the entire podcast. Every time we say fake it till you make it,
put in be present, because that's probably a better way to say it.
Be present wherever you are. And we'll just dub over that. Yeah. So give me one clean be present wherever you are that we can put over that.
Yeah, so be present whenever you're on your trip, duplicating the same thing, feeling like a negative Nancy. Just be present.
Yeah, just be present wherever you are.
Were you present when you were watching the Grammys last night? That's what you
said.
No,
I absolutely wasn't. So the Grammys pop on, and I'm in the room, and I find myself, I'm mostly scrolling. And the part that made me really go out of body on it is I hear the same song on TikTok on Instagram Reels, as is what's going on the Grammy, and I had to... Oh, yeah, it's there. Like, I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And it made me think, like, which machine is driving what? Is the Grammy and the music, machine driving Instagram Reels? Or is Instagram Reels driving the people that are actually going to win the awards at the Grammys?
I feel like if you really think about it, the music industry kind of is just using a different medium. You had Napster and all the ripping off things, and then we moved into streaming, and now all of a sudden it's just wherever pop culture is. So doesn't it kind of feel like TikTok is the way that they're listening to the radio almost now?
Maybe. I definitely agree with what you're saying, because you've got the music industry had radio, then the music industry had streaming, the music, it's going to constantly evolve and be a different thing. But currently there's no monetization for the 8-second or 10-second bit of music, but it does popularize it.
I'm not positive, but I would imagine that these streaming companies have paired up with like TikTok, and if they get a certain amount of play, I bet it still trickles through the whole system, just as if it was streamed on Apple or Spotify. I can't imagine that they would have signed any type of contracts that doesn't trickle the same way. If you're going to play this thing for 30 seconds, it's still 30 seconds of our pop song, so it's a stream. And if you think about it like that, it's just a different radio station.
And that's the real question, because most people would say, well, what drives radio stations' income? And it would be advertising. So in whatever way you can associate this medium to advertising is going to be the way that you
Same
get
thing.
income.
TikTok advertises. Whoever wants to advertise on their platform, they pay the streaming service for the amount of music or whatever contract they drew up. Bada bing, bada boom,
Can you start a music career through TikTok, do you think? Start. I don't mean further. I mean start.
Well, think about Justin Bieber on YouTube. Prime example. I don't see how you couldn't do that on TikTok now.
So explain to me what you mean.
So Justin Bieber was discovered making YouTube videos singing his songs.
Like as a kid?
Yeah, the producer... What is Scooby or Snoopy or I don't remember his name. I'm not.
I sure hope you're not talking about Snoop Dogg.
No. Scooter, his manager or whatever, found him as a kid, and he was making YouTube videos, and he decided to make him a star. He brought him down. He talked with him, signed some kind of a deal, and I believe, has been his manager since day one. So he was found on YouTube. Yeah, absolutely, it's possible.
So YouTube creates a place where someone with talent can meet with somebody who can. Exploit's the wrong word, but can utilize the talent.
It seems like the right word from what you've watched and seen over the years.
So it allows a talent to meet with somebody who can exploit the talent and then also give money back to the talent. So you're thinking TikTok can be that for the next group.
The worst thing I think about, yes, but when you think about, so in NFL, they do rookie contracts where they basically underpay the guy for X amount of years until he signs a real contract. The music industry is nearly the same exact thing, but the problem is that unless you're extremely creative, they rob you of your story. When you think of an artist's first album, there are a whole lot of artists that album is pretty much the only one that anyone really cares about outside of insanely engaged fans.
I mean, that's why the sophomore slump is a statement. It's a statement because
Do you have anything else to tell? That's why
Right.
drug addicts make such great music, because they keep they keep experiencing life, though. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Like I went through a tragedy, or I went through a high, or I went through a something. Yeah.
yeah, you have more stories to tell.
Let's be clear. We're going to come back to Taylor Swift. You get in love and you get hurt so many times like that poor girl has.
George Strait's been singing love songs since the beginning of time. He must really be in love. Or
It's
he just
true.
gets the game. Kenny Chesney sings about beach and partying nonstop. I mean, there's a couple models of music that is extremely categorically
Right.
what you should do. Love, sex, drugs, partying.
Right. Youth.
Yeah.
Being young. Country music, where you live, where you came from. That's another spot. I don't know why that's such a big thing, but it really is.
It depends if you're from the Midwest, I guess. I
Maybe.
don't really know for sure if the New Yorkers enjoy the country back where I come from.
Right. Well, what about Pitbull? I mean, Pitbull's been
Party.
forever.
His category's party.
How does he party?
Snoop Dogg, party. It's party.
How can you party that long? Like, I don't know that my body can party.
It's easy. Like there's stimulants and things that you can use. And then like when you buy bigger boats and things, you kind of find another
bigger party.
another gear to party in.
That's what it is.
And
So the sophomore
he's
year-
probably just faking it till he makes it. You see,
He's living presently. So really, the sophomore slump is about expanding your horizon. So it becomes really difficult if you're going to stay right where you're at to go any further.
a music artist is literally a parallel of a human life. If a human artist can reinvent themselves and have more stories to tell in a creative way, they continue to stay relevant. If they don't experience life anymore and become really rich and don't do anything, they make really crappy music.
Well, now you're describing the storytellers. You're describing the singer-songwriters. You're describing
Yes
that
and
kind
no.
of
I mean,
person.
think about all the pop people that come out and they have one of the biggest pop songs known to man. Well, unless someone else writes them another pop jam,
That's what I'm getting
they're
at.
over. It's done.
That's what I'm getting at. Like there's a whole, well, the 90s and early 2000s was really a big hotbed of it, where you just wait for somebody else to write you a good song and then you'd sing it because you were the talent, but someone else was the writing.
Unfortunately, though, the more I've learned about music, I think that's been around since day one.
Sure. I mean, how many
there's
experiences
only-
can a person really have?
Yeah, it's kind of insane when you kind of see the trickles of songwriters. More or less, it's a pretty small. Take country music, for example. If you really look at who wrote all the songs for Blake Shelton, Jason Aldean, and I don't remember, there's another one. Three of some of the, been in the top of the charts for how many years now? Literally, that whole catalog came from like one or two writers.
Right. Which they weren't. What makes you wonder, like, what kind of life are they living? Or are they just so good at giving a new spin to the same experience?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you can be a fictional writer, and you're that type of a person, you could probably make music forever as long as you get the category. I think George Strait and Kenny Chesney are nearly probably the best examples of someone that has reinvented the Snoop Dogg for a different category.
Taylor Swift, which we were gonna say. I know
Well,
it was on your tongue.
Yeah, but I think she's just a very creative person and makes great music. But what I'm saying is she's actually switched different genres and sang about different topics, like
Right.
the Snoop Dogg, Kenny Chesney.
You're talking
George
about
Strait. They know the mold of what has worked for them, and they do the same thing over and over and over.
You're talking about writing about the same topic, but coming to it from a very different experience every single time.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Or even just genre following. Like, this type of beat feels good now. 5 years from now, this type of beat is so we're going to write a new song. It's the same thing.
Have you
just
ever
a different beat.
Have you ever seen the Ed Sheeran deal where he's on an interview? Ed Sheeran, extremely talented. He would be a great songwriter person that kind of continually makes new music. But have you ever seen where he more or less puts together like 10 or 15 of the top whatever songs on the same three chords on his guitar or whatever?
Yeah, it's a great YouTube video.
It's just the way it sounds, like he's
Well,
like.
on the other hand, have you seen the ones where oh shoot, I'm gonna forget his name right now. He did I'm blanking on it. So he's a songwriter from the early 2000s, maybe late 90s, and he's a piano punk kind of guy, and I am blowing on his name. But this guy is
the Constantine song?
no, that's something
guy?
corporate. No, this is a Rock in the Suburbs. He's a guy that did
Billy Joel?
golly, no. I'm sorry for all of you.
Elton John?
None of that. You're not going to come up with this.
I mean, who else is playing piano that I'm not thinking of?
No, I'm not going to remember it. But he's got a great musical mind. And he ends up running and hosting this event at the Kennedy Center. And the audience gives him topics. The audience gives him words. The audience gives him a key. And he basically, on the spot, composes an entire song that is 100% pulled out of the audience, like as they spoke. He does it in front of the audience. He does the entire thing with a symphony. So he's legitimately writing a symphony off of whatever the audience gives. And now, he does it in a matter of like 10 minutes.
Are the people in the symphony, they're also improvising or no?
No. Well, I mean, they are in that he will say, I want you to be in the key of G, and I want you to bring something, faster pace than that. Good. Now move it to a D. Good. And like all right, now keep playing that in the background. And then like you see him just developing this. Like
I'd like to watch that. I've never seen that.
And it would be a lot easier if I could tell you his name.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, we'll find it.
Yeah.
So this guy does that, and he is creating music as it goes, but he's one of those personalities, these people, like you said, that can just write fiction, that can write music, that can imagine song, and everything that he comes up is at least passable. I mean, he made something passable out of like what amounted to a jingle that someone yelled out from the audience. And it was like pretty good. It was pretty good.
Yeah, we'll have to look it up. I'm interested in that. Have you heard in the latest little Joe Biden nugget?
I have not.
So I had read through some articles, and he has suggested, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, by 2026, they're talking about basically making it to where all vehicles need to be 40 miles per gallon or better.
I love it.
You love it?
I'm all in.
Do you think that it's even possible?
Yes.
Are they going to put in some type of a clause, I'm assuming, that says transportation vehicles don't have to meet that? Because you have to have an electric vehicle basically in 2026 selling that wholeheartedly if you're going to be moving transportation, say semi-trucks, anything like that, the whole construction industry. They're never going to get 40 miles a gallon unless it's an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it totally depends on what category he's talking about, whether it's like the consumer vehicle has to be over 40 miles a gallon or whether it means, like you said, literally anything that rolls.
I would imagine there's going to be some huge caveats.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I like those moonshot things. And not that I don't even think 40 miles a gallon is that much of a moonshot. But I like those pushes.
There's literally zero cars that get 40 miles a gallon except for like 4 of them.
Hybrids get 40
Drive
miles
down the road. Tell me how many of them are getting 40.
Mine does.
So when you're driving down the road, there's 3 people next to me out of the 40,000 cars.
See? But what I'm getting at though is like it is an attainable shot, just like the moonshot was. Like we can bomb the moon. Yeah. Like they could do that. At that time, they could bomb the moon. So if we can bomb the moon, let's land somebody on it. We can hit 40 miles a gallon in our current technology. So if we can hit it now, let's make it like the standard. Like I don't think it's outside of our technology wheelhouse, but I like it because it pushes the envelope. And unless America as a people continue to push the envelope, someone else will. Someone else is going to make that moonshot. And that's what we kind of proved with the moonshot.
Do you think that the need for better gas mileage was ever...
You're going to say real.
No. So let me say this right. So do you think that basically the need for getting better gas mileage was ever stopped in its tracks due to wanting to sell more oil?
Possibly. I think any of those things are absolutely likely. I mean, think about how many things are run by the puppet masters of large corporations. Totally get that. But I think you put a thing in policy that makes it so that no matter what the oil prices are, we're going to hit 40 miles to the gallon as part of the, like, if you're going to sell a car in America, it's going to be 40 miles to the gallon.
Think about that, though, for the gas industry. If you really did make it 40 miles to the gallon and it was an affordable style vehicle, you would sell way less oil.
Yes.
Way less oil.
Yes.
I haven't got above 18 miles to the gallon in my vehicle probably in the last 7 years.
Right.
If I had 40 miles to the gallon, I would say that I would probably use like 2 gallons of gas a week.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it completely changes the market because, well, and even look at what COVID did to the market. So COVID immediately took out of the driving space thousands of vehicles, hundreds of thousands. Like I remember in the height of COVID when I was driving to work and it was, a normal drive to work time. And I took a picture of it. There was no one on the road. I had 4 lanes to myself. Across the road had 4 lanes to themselves. And I'm telling you, not a soul was on the road at that time. Like that is, I've never seen that before.
Right.
And I've never seen it since. That moment, though, was an example of what happens when you remove that and what happened to gas prices, what happened to demand. It plummeted. And so, yeah, that absolutely will happen if we change over our expected consumption to half.
Do you think the technology is there? Or do you think, my only worry is that Elon Musk is showing you what the technology is. He's bringing forward as close, this is as good as it gets.
Currently.
And it doesn't seem to me, I'm a little worried that it's not quite ready. But if you mass produced everything, are you telling me that car could cost 25 if it was more mass produced? Or are you just saying, like everything else, this is the price and it just continues to climb and climb?
Think about what Musk is up against right now. Like he has to build most of his parts for his cars because almost everybody has cut him out of the current deals.
Well, he'll have to stay cutting edge on the sportiest, most epic performance of all time because just as the moves with Ford and Chevy and all the big manufacturers now, they're going to take over that lower market with a snap of a finger.
Well, I think he's done the smarter thing to say, instead what I need to do is continue pushing the boundaries on technology, on battery technology, on self-driving car technology, because you're absolutely right. If all it takes is having a battery and an electric motor, both of which we can build right now, to sell, which that's what the car companies are starting to do. The Lightning, the Volt has been there for a long time. You've got these electric cars that are coming out, and these old dinosaur car companies are starting to take big chunks out of the market. The Mach-E, the Maverick, which isn't an electric vehicle yet, but as soon as they make that an electric vehicle, it's going to sell like hotcakes. Like you get those dinosaurs that already have the infrastructure to build and be those players, it's going to absolutely revolutionize the thing. So he needs to stay on a whole different level ahead of them.
The self-driving car model for sure.
Absolutely.
It's the only niche he has. I mean, that's going to be the only thing that changes the ball game because every other company has come out with a pretty compelling offer. I mean,
right.
Potentially even better.
Competitive. Yeah, a very competitive. When you say that my car, my sports car, because most of his are kind of sports cars as far as speed and acceleration, is so fast, and then Ford comes out with the Lightning, which is a truck, which has like similar, I won't notice a difference, similar acceleration and speed to, speed to charge. Like I have a truck versus an electric car that was touted as being one of the fastest accelerating vehicles on the road, and they're almost the same now. Well, that's not going to sell, that's not going to be the thing that sells Teslas. And as Tesla continues to run into the issue of like people having the YouTube videos where they're pulling on different struts and stuff and they look kind of chintzy and cheap as a luxury car, they're going to start losing that game too. So he's going to have to up his quality and add something more to the table, which I think he is.
There needs to be some innovation. The next step of it that either battery capacity is way higher, whether it be charging stations more readily available. But, we talked about this before. I really think that the automatic driving thing is the only technology that needs to be created out of this whole industry. Because it's the game changer. It changes the way that the whole cities are built. It changes the need for plug-in stations at home. All those things, I think, are hurdles that are too big to... You're building something that's not the end game. You should have built the end game. Infrastructure takes so long to create.
Well, and you're building something on an infrastructure that was designed around something else. Electricity, if batteries are currently our choke point, then batteries need to stop being the choke point. They're competing against a gallon of gas, which is, it takes no time to insert more of, and then you keep down the road.
Are you worried that the innovation should beat it rather than subsidize everything? And let me give you two. Mm-hmm. If I inflate, there's a gas tax, right? And I inflate gas prices, okay? Well, then that makes it more affordable to have these electric vehicles. So that's one avenue, one way to do it, right? Increase the cost of gas. The other avenue would be build more cars, make them a little bit cheaper just because there's more product out there. That's another version. But both of them, you can't really do one unless you throttle the industry. But is the technology, should it move because the technology says it's better, or should it be forced to move?
Well, this is going to be a weird answer. And so I'm going to just say it right out and we'll go from there. I think unless you bring something new to the table, you can't take over an industry. You can't even add to an industry. And so my example is Elon Musk, same guy, wants to create a social media platform. We've already seen Google do a similar thing. Tons of money. They tried to make it. They push this social media platform, but it doesn't do anything different or really that much better than Facebook. It dies on the vine.
Right.
Speaking of Vine, Vine comes in and changes everything by just making it a video platform, and it needs to be super small.
But wait, where's Vine?
It died because the other people figured it out and said, well, we want that. And they bought it. And so they absorbed it into the ecosystem.
Right.
But each one that actually broke in and made a dent in the current ecosystem brought a technology that didn't exist before or was not like being sought after. So now with the cars, what is Tesla bringing to the table? They're bringing batteries that can go the extended range, charge faster. People are going to catch that. They're bringing cars that can drive themselves. No one's catching that yet.
Yeah, that's going to have to be the technology. I wonder what the open source policy from Elon Musk really means. Does that mean that Ford can utilize it? Does that mean that all the other companies can utilize the autopilot features when it's actually completed?
Yeah, I don't know. That would be so much legalese reading to try and figure out exactly what things are open source versus what things are like, no, you can have it. You just have to make sure that you pay me for it.
Right. So you brought up a good point. I kind of am curious about that. You know, if Elon Musk or some other rich dude comes along, has enough money to back a social media platform that actually brings something more compelling, what does that platform need to actually stick around?
If I could tell you that, I'd be the next billionaire who made a social media
you're
platform.
Not a code writer. You're not, you know what I
true.
mean? Like, what really would have to be bring? I mean, we've seen everything done. What really does it have to offer other than, you know, I'll help you out a little bit. It has to be the wild, wild west where people can say and do whatever they want.
Yeah, but that exists. That's what I mean. Like, so what?
That is true.
Former President Trump created one where he felt like the truth. Now, I don't know what it is, and I don't intend to know what it is. But
sure,
he creates one, and it is the Wild West.
Do you think that advertising will have to be taken out of that type of a platform?
You will always. I feel weird saying these things because, like, I don't know, but I have to imagine someone always pays for it. And I mean, that's the age-old thing is like nothing's for free. And so for the longest time, the model, especially in America, was the one that was pioneered by like radio, which is you're not going to pay me to have a radio station, but I do have an advertiser who really wants to get his product into your ears. He'll pay me, and then you can have your advertisement or you can have your radio station for free. Well, that just continues to go into the next and the next and the next. And the real nefarious ones are the ones that you have to pay for and then also get ads on. Like
yeah.
I think that's BS.
That may have to be the model, though, don't you think? Maybe it's you pay $2.99 a month or something to access a platform or have the key to get in.
If I am a company, so either way, if I'm a company that runs on ad revenue, the people who pay me to advertise on my thing will have influence over me. They have to. They're where I get paid. All right, they've decided that they don't like this kind of content. I need to stop showing it. I either hold my ground and lose some advertisers, or I bow to them and I keep my advertiser revenue and I change whatever thing people are upset about. On the other hand, if it's subscription-based, now I'm beholden to my subscribers. And if my subscribers have decided that this kind of thing is not okay, even if it's a perception issue, I still have to make sure that they're the ones that are happy. Otherwise, they drop their subscriptions.
Right.
That's a word. So, like, how do you see someone stepping outside of having to, I guess not bow to, but make sure that they're making somebody else happy? Because that's going to be the limiter, right?
Well, the hurdle to jump over in a subscription model would be how then do you pay the content creators? Because if the app say, you know, someone's willing to pay $4.99, $9.99, that's probably max. It might even be like a $2.99 thing to get in. Well, if you got in the door for a fee, that makes that company no longer require advertisers to continue, which I don't know what that model looks like. It may not be very compelling to charge $2.99 across the board, but I don't know.
Netflix does it right now. Netflix
Good
is
example.
I don't get no advertisements. I pay. They do up my payments pretty regularly. I've changed my
Yay for Netflix.
Right. But at the same time, like I really like that I can pop on Netflix and watch 0 commercials.
Right. So say you get on this platform and it's social media. By social media, I think it'll probably be less of the wild, wild west things and more of content creation. I think it'll be similar to either a Spotify podcast format or a YouTube podcast format where you duplicate the landing page. How many YouTube videos do you come across where someone's talking about a topic, but really they created a landing page?
Mm-hmm.
Now they have a place for dialogue below, tons of comments. It's an interactive society, all based on that chunk. But YouTube, to be quite frank, there is a lot of ads on YouTube. And
Tons.
if you get going on a couple different videos with 3 or 4 minute videos, you're watching a lot of ads. So if they created an app that you could pay to get in to see no ads, that will be the hurdle, is then what? You're also going to pay who you're listening to. And I find that to be problematic.
Well, it would probably be a scenario like you're saying, if it is Netflix creates all their own content or has paid somebody to have their content on the and it's an established something.
Right. The advertisers allow the creators to make money.
Right.
How does the creator make money in that model? If it's a subscription to get into the Netflix, right? You're in there, and then you've got all the peoples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Netflix paid those companies to allow that to happen. So what the deal is, Netflix is going to be trying to make all these deals with all these random creators?
Well, let's
whatever
assume,
this company's called.
We'll call it Our Flicks, so or Our Pod, or some really clever. Like, it's going to be amazing. Everyone sign up for it.
Sure.
So you've got this site, and you pay to be on the site. You're going to have a ton of content to begin with, which is part of the problem that Netflix is running into. We don't have enough content.
They're going to have to. That's why the whole thing's possible, is you grab a bunch of celebrities, Joe Rogans of the world, bring them on this platform. Now you've got content. So you're looking for content just to begin with, which you can pay for up front. You can. That's what Netflix was doing. That's what other companies have done. I pay for what's it called? Out of Exclusive content.
Not just exclusive, like you're paying for access to a content. Like they would do that when
the rights to it or something. Is that
right? Yeah, like you think back when we were kids, and you'd watch Seinfeld during the day or something, or you'd watch some other show during the day, but then late at night you'd get to watch Seinfeld's old episodes over and over and over again at like the 9:00 time slot. All they were doing was paying that amount to show Seinfeld videos at 9 p.m. So that Seinfeld video already existed. They're just paying you to show it. And that's what Netflix did. Netflix did it with The Office for a long time. But then the people who own The Office were like, well, we're not going to keep doing this because we want people to come to our site. So I think the same thing would have to happen for the next one. You have to get a big old nest egg to be able to buy content from other people, which would be hard because everyone's trying to sell their own content exclusively. So good luck. But then secondly, you would end up having that commercial free. I don't need commercials to do this. And now you as a content creator can come in and be a part of it. And the same algorithm for how YouTube pays you now would be what would be used on that. They
so
just
the
wouldn't be
platform would
advertiser
be
money.
Extremely exclusive. It would be, if I understand you correctly, this thing would say you've got Joe Rogan, a couple other comedians, say you sign them all up. You've got a couple social style people. You've got your top YouTuber faces.
Got my influencers in there.
Yeah, so I got 15 people on this platform. I'm going to pay each of them a chunk of money to be on there, and then I'm going to make money off the $3.99 a month that these people come in. That would be your model.
I want to watch it. And then on top of that, you could start a channel right now if you wanted. Go ahead and start a channel, and I will pay you for the number of views that you get.
So then once you get there, this already exists. It's called Spotify. So quite frankly, there is no platform in your mind for Elon Musk to make.
I mean, if he does, if Elon Musk does make this platform, I honestly think the reason that he's trying to do it is one of two things. One, he's a childish person, which I don't believe, who just wants to say what I want to say. And I don't think that's true. I didn't think that was true when Trump wanted to say what he wanted to say. I think they're both smarter people than that. And let's just pretend Elon Musk is the smartest man alive, which there's a lot more evidence to that than he's the dumbest man alive. And I'd say he wants to have a place where he can actually say what he wants to say that drive sales of his current companies. He can make a statement right now on Twitter. He's already been in trouble for it, that says he wants to change how he's activating his stock. And now the entire stock market goes, and they do something about it.
Right.
which is illegal according to SEC and stuff.
It is an insane situation.
Right.
So you can't even talk anymore to not blow up your business one way or another. It's kind of crazy.
Exactly. So he makes a different platform where he gets to do that. There's a slight danger to it because I do think he has a certain ego that he always throws stuff out to his people and says, I'll do whatever you say. Like, hey, all you followers, I'm going to make a poll and I'm going to do whatever you say. He may or may not actually be doing whatever they say. He may already know they're going to vote for me to dump stock or whatever. And he just wants a good reason to make it seem like he's very, I don't know. The man's brain is clearly way above mine. Nevertheless, he's got this scenario where he has a platform that will only speak to the people that follow him at that point. Well, that could either be really, really good, or you end up getting this weird echo chamber where you're only hearing people that are yes men to you, which could be really, really dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know, because in the same token, when you think of it, the only reason why all the creativity gets to happen, why we get to do what we're doing,
right,
is because of advertising revenue. It opens the door to creativeness from any walk of life that I can't imagine that a platform that was strictly built on grabbing a couple celebrities and charging a deal, I don't see one model that offers anything more compelling than what already exists. I don't. As of right now, there's nothing from end to end that makes any money from Elon to foot the bill for the whole thing, or makes anything from these people outside of what Spotify's already doing. Now, if you want to be a different one of those, well, you got to build a whole music streaming company that comes along with it, don't you?
But again, music streaming existed before Spotify, and Spotify did things that made it better. The things that they did that made it better was, one, they're starting to push towards podcasting and videos on podcasting. Two, they made it so that you had a very large library and you could choose which song was the one to play next, but you didn't have to own any of the songs. So it was like personalized radio, which was really, really cool. And no one was doing it at the time. They had Pandora, but Pandora was randomized because since you weren't choosing it, you didn't own it. Whatever Spotify did to make sure that you technically didn't have to own what you were choosing to play, like that was the game changer. And it might have been just because I paid money so they could pay the record executives.
Well, now you can't change the songs backwards. I think there's some types of holdups if you don't actually pay for the subscription on Spotify.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So the subscription service opens up the ability to create playlists, to share, and do. There's probably other things that you can do as a free to play, but in reality, they're using the money that I gave them to say, I just want to play music, and maybe they're betting on the fact that I'm not going to play that much music. I have no idea what the model is.
So how long does Apple slowly weed through the weeds? Taking notes, writing it down, checking out Spotify, checking out this platform. How long before they make an extremely compelling offer for podcasting? They've always had podcasting. They've had people download the episodes. They kind of built the industry because they gave the Wild Wild West style platform a place that people could actually place the things. But they are without a doubt getting beat by Spotify, hands down right now. When you look at downloads of episodes or plays or anything like that, the Joe Rogan move that Spotify made, that was a big, big, big deal for the momentum of the podcast industry. And they have a lot of different monetization offers. Spotify, bar none, is way better than Apple. How long before Apple pairs that up in their music streaming and basically does what Spotify does, but better? Because normally they do it better.
Yeah, I think it probably has to do with whatever. You say the Wild Wild West, and it kind of is. Like they offer something out there big, and man, I don't know.
I have to say, I might have even thought of my own answer, and you won't know this, so I didn't think that I would. It just kind of hit me. Did you know that Apple is actually starting to come up with an advertising platform? It's unfortunate, isn't it? So they are. I listened to a podcast on Joe Rogan. I can't remember the guy's name, but he worked for Apple, and there was some kind of conspiracy deal, or not a conspiracy, wrong word, some kind of conflict. He ends up getting fired, but he was talking about he was working on their advertising position. They're basically going to make an advertising platform, and I have to say, it just hit me between the eyes. That is why.
It might be why. Well, I don't. So I will say this. Right now, I pay for Spotify. I can listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, and I listen to advertisements. I don't like that. I don't like that I'm paying to. And it's the same thing. The same reason I don't like cable.
So you
I
do pay
pay-
for Spotify, or you do not?
Yes,
So
I
you
do
do,
pay.
and then you still hear ads?
I still hear ads.
The ones that he reads, I guess, I'm assuming?
Nope, they're sometimes they're even just break-in ads.
What's up with that?
I don't know. That's
I thought
what I
that was
mean.
the point.
I don't like it. It's the same thing on cable. Like I pay to I don't, but if I pay to have cable, why am I also getting advertisement? Right? Like I don't like that. That's why I like Netflix. When people are like, why would you do Netflix if you could do this, do this, that, do that? Because Netflix and now Disney Plus is one. I don't get any advertisements on it. I just watch the show. Hulu, unless you pay for the premium, you're going to get ads in the middle of it. Yuck.
Interesting. I didn't know that maybe it's still a software thing, because I didn't think that you were supposed to still get the ads. I'm kind of curious if it's the overlay style, or is he like reading it during his podcast, but I'm pretty sure all that's separate. So you're just getting boned all around, huh?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it could be that that's exactly what it is that Apple's going to do, and they're going to do a similar product.
Does Apple have an offer on their music streaming that you can do it free?
I don't know. I really don't. So what your question originally was kind of like, what is Apple's next big move? And I think exclusives might be a way they go. But
they're trying their streaming service on the movie side.
That's what I can't tell, because so for instance, the Xbox and PlayStation fight has been going on forever, and I think fight's the wrong word. It's you have competition. That's the good thing. You want that competition. It drives innovation. It drives creativity. They are always wrestling for exclusives, because the exclusive is going to put you in their ecosystem. I want, for instance, Xbox just bought Bethesda. So they own all of the library of Bethesda, which is like Fallout games, Elder Scrolls games, which if you don't know the gaming world, like those are two massive franchises that used to go to everybody. You could play PlayStation, you could play computer, you could play Xbox.
MLB, that was a game that was always on PlayStation for long time. That's another example.
Xbox soaks it up. Yeah. Right. So those sorts of things, and PlayStation does the same thing. They've got a lot of exclusives that are theirs. That would say, if I want to play God of War, I have to go to PlayStation to play it. Otherwise, I don't play God of War. Which is a really good idea to drive people to their content, which is what Spotify did with Joe Rogan. You like hearing Joe Rogan in full format? You come to us. This won't be on YouTube anymore. This won't be on other podcast formats anymore. You come to us. So they're driving people, they're driving a known audience to their platform because that's what they want. It's a good idea. Then Apple either has to decide to respond in kind and get their own pool of people that are interested.
I'm sure they'll play the game. I mean, if you're talking about advertising revenue, Facebook has been built on advertising revenue and one of the most powerful companies in the world. Google is the same thing, and just people don't really maybe think about it quite as much. Google's advertising platform is connected to freaking everything. I mean,
and the first three things I search on every single search are all ads.
All ads, anything on YouTube, the whole, your Android phone is based on all the ads are all through Google. Google is enormous with advertising, and I think that Apple's doing what Apple does, and they sit in the weeds until they figure out a way to make it better, and then they do make it better most of the time. And it'll be interesting to see how they're going to juggle that, because I don't know that are you waiting until Joe Rogan's done with his contract and then you're going to snatch him up? Because to be honest, I don't know anybody that listens to podcasts that hasn't played around in the Joe Rogan hemisphere. He pretty much drives that market. It's obvious if you're going to pay a podcaster $100 million to come on over here, and
he's
then
clearly got a following.
Yeah. So are you really going to be able to do much if you just yank over a bunch of other podcasters that probably is actually the same audience as Joe Rogan?
Possibly. More to the point, is it an exclusive thing? Because right now I can listen to Joe Rogan. Like, you don't pay for Spotify, right?
I do not.
But you can listen to Joe Rogan for free.
Yep.
So the advertiser is really who's paying for you to listen to Joe Rogan. The same thing could be true on Apple. An advertiser would pay you to listen to whoever they have exclusive rights. In which case, it's different than Sony and Xbox, because I have to invest myself into the Sony ecosystem. I have to buy a PlayStation to play PlayStation games.
Right.
I don't have to buy Spotify to listen to Joe Rogan, but the advertiser does. The advertiser has to put money in there.
I think Apple's going to do that. I think they're going to mimic Spotify. I don't know another way that I think they dropped the ball. I think Apple Podcasts created the podcasting industry, and they completely dropped the ball, which they normally do. They normally wait around too long and don't execute innovation. They normally wait around and then just do it better. And I think that They had it.
Well, yeah, no one did podcasts.
Was it? I mean, they had the whole market, and now they have nearly completely let it go because they didn't do anything about it.
I didn't know there was another way to listen to podcasts other than the one that came on my phone. I legitimately had no idea.
I don't think that there really was. I mean, there was some platforms that probably weren't as accessible unless you were on a desktop computer.
Like Stitcher, I think, is one of them that houses a lot of them, and they have their own listening capacity. But
right.
yeah.
But if you've ever talked to anybody, they're not. I don't know anyone that has any of those third-party style apps or anything like that. It was you were listening to them on Apple Podcasts because you could download them. It was already on your phone, easy peasy,
easy to search.
Sure. And that the move that Spotify made with Joe Rogan is enormous for that industry.
I mean, it's a chess move. They are trying to project a thing, and it may pay. Like I like pretending like I know. I don't know a dang thing, but like. It does have implications. It states this is where we think the market is going. We think the market is going towards exclusiveness, and we are investing in exclusivity. That's a thing. That's a stake in the ground. You know, they're making a move.
Yeah,
we'll see if it pays off.
Well, I mean, you think they waited so long with? I don't know that they had the idea, but your Netflix and those kind of companies came around. They did it first, right? But what do you wait a decade to make Apple Plus or whatever it's called?
So here's a question. You say that. Who dies now that Spotify is doing this? Netflix kills, and maybe some Redbox. They kill Blockbuster. The dinosaur that doesn't change. Do we have a dinosaur in this industry that doesn't change, that dies because of what podcasting is doing now with Spotify?
I have a theory. And
okay.
I think that Spotify and the long format podcasting on an application that you can leave the app and still receive the content. YouTube has to be on.
So turn it off, put it in my pocket.
Put it in my
pocket,
still hear. Listen. Oh, I want to see what they're talking about. Pull it out, see the video content. I think the way they have built that, basically for people that are 30 to 40 years old, will no longer have cable in a couple more years once sporting events are figured out. Because every old person watches Fox News or CNN or has some kind of a news broadcast on nonstop
or
all
a sport
the time.
or a sport.
And I think that our generation will be watching podcasts.
So hold on. You like maybe I invest in Spotify when this goes off, but do you think Spotify can offer sports as in sports radio that then you can also just watch watch the actual streaming of it?
Well, it's kind of interesting because you've got a little technology. Apple made the first move on sometimes I say first move, and it's only because I know about it. And I'm normally pretty cutting edge in technology. And if I know about it, probably,
about you.
Well, I'm just saying normally no one else knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about is FaceTime is now allowed to share screen, but they paired it with their music app. So now if I'm listening to a new song and I want to FaceTime you, you can hear that song. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to allow that to happen,
not through FaceTime as far as like it's on my speaker and you can hear it. It plays on your phone separately.
Correct.
Right.
So you can. It's a good experience. And what I think may come of all this is as time goes on and the metaverse concept, right? Everything's being done online. Well, if you imagine where this could go, hey Sam, let me call you real quick. Have you seen this? What's on right now on this sporting event? Everyone's got TVs. Everyone's got Apple TV, or whether it be a Roku or a Fire Stick. Everyone's playing the game. All of a sudden, that's easy to go over there. You give it the old Minority Report, flip it on the phone. It's on the television. Now me and you are watching the sporting event that who's paying for? I'm paying for. But you can see the sporting event because I'm talking to you and I want to watch the end of this game with you because it's insane. Mm-hmm. Do you pay for sports? You don't like them that much. Mm-hmm. You're not watching them. I'm paying for sports. Let's watch it. Imagine how many people you would lose off of TV if there wasn't sports. First of all, step one. Mm-hmm. No sports? No one's got TV. Now, if you do have sports, how many more people do you lose that's not like a real big fan that could just buy like some $10 sports package and be done with it?
Yeah. Yeah, like if well, that's the thing, because they end up pairing it out into these little bits. Like you don't have a sports package, and if you do, it's like $70.
Sure.
Or you have little bits of sport package, like you do the soccer sports. But I also like lacrosse. Said no one ever. But assuming that that's the thing that you do, now you have a lacrosse package.
Well, you subscribe to Netflix. Why don't you subscribe to the MLB? You can pay $4.99 a month and you can watch our games, and we'll get rid of Fox and all these other companies that we have all these contracts with.
And any game. You can watch any game the MLB has.
And I would imagine they would make bukus more money if they could literally get their entire fan base to do that. The problem is advertising is wrapped up in every industry to the fullest.
Well, they pay a lot of money. That's the part I truly don't understand. Like, I don't know what the turnover would be from what is ad revenue for an amount of time that someone's watching a game versus how many people would I have to pay me to watch the game to make up that difference.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You think of like Ford running Ford truck commercials.
Right.
They had to pay bukus. Or how about we talk about on Super Bowl commercials? Everyone kind of knows they're paying $1, $3, $5 million for the last run of ads. So for you to pay $5 million, what is that worth to you as a company? That if everyone would have just paid $1 to watch that game,
right?
If everyone would have paid $1, I don't know what their ratings were or anything like that, but don't you figure that it was probably like 50, 60 million? So 50, 60 million, they all pay $1. They probably made more money from their advertisers, didn't they?
I would assume so. But then on top of that, you also got to imagine the very first year that happens, they lose all the money. Because how many times when you get something that used to be free to you and they ask you to pay $1 for, but honestly, it's a better system, do you go, yeah, I'll pay $1 for this? Or do you go, this used to be free?
No, I don't actually think advertising is going anywhere because they will pay more money and then the prices of the goods will go higher. There's no doubt about it. When you see a compelling advertisement, it makes people want to buy stuff.
Right.
So if that model works and I can make you pay $10 more and I got to pay $8 more for advertising, I'm going to do it.
A great example of that scenario is because at our house we watch Netflix, and because at our house we watch Disney Plus, and we watch these things, our kids don't see advertisement ever. And I found myself like 2 years ago going, what am I going to get them for Christmas? I don't have any idea. When I was a kid at Christmas, I could tell you 1,000 things I wanted for Christmas because I watched all the ads.
Right.
So my kids don't see these ads. They don't have any idea what they want for Christmas other than what they see from their friend's house. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Let's quit hanging out with friends so that we don't have to get anything crazy.
My kids have been unplugged from the advertisement scheme, and they don't even know what to buy. And half the time they didn't really want anything. So does that mean that you take advertisement out of the American mind and you all of a sudden have a very content populace? Did we fix it?
Yeah, we might have done it.
We fixed America.
Advertising.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Everyone's welcome.
Turn off advertising and you have a whole new world. A whole new world. That reminds me. Went to Disney. Did you know that?
Wait, so hold on. You went to Disney or you went to Disney on Ice?
Disney on Ice. I have to say, Disney on Ice. I went 2 years in a row to take the daughters, And last year, it was a little bit of choreography, a little bit of skating. This year, they did some crazy stuff. We had some trampoline stuff, a little circusry. Is that a word, circusry?
No, wait. So they're skating, and now they're putting skates on trampolines?
So, no. Skates were off, so they had a kind of a group that is what it is, but they'd ride on those little hoverboards. That's how they would get around on the ice. They'd ride the hoverboards. They get to the trampolines. They would do acrobatics. They had people on stilts walking around the ice. They had a segment where, what's the deal with in gymnastics where you're holding the big long piece of cloth?
Oh yeah, like
around.
silks.
Yeah, so they added a lot of that kind of stuff with the people on skates.
So this is Disney Cirque du Soleil.
Basically, very good show. I was extremely shocked. If you have a young kid, go to Disney on Ice. I mean, it was awesome.
Hold on, let's be clear. Like, I remember Disney on Ice as a kid being you just watching the Muppets skate around, and some of them were good. Some it didn't bother me, but I'm seeing the Muppets.
Yeah, no Muppets.
You're saying at this point, watching Disney on Ice is getting more and more entertaining for you as an adult person.
I would go watch the show without kids. That's how good I thought the show was.
What's the price compared to going to like a Cirque du Soleil?
Oh, really comparable. I mean, it's like Missouri Branson show is what it literally was. I mean, it was probably 20, 30, 40 bucks a person. And you go up there. I don't know if it was different. We sat front row because my wife loves to sit in the front row at this thing. So you can be right on the ice with them. Kids love it. They're glowing, blowing bubbles with their super affordable bubble makers.
That's not true.
Yeah, every time I'm like, there's 50 cents, 50 cents, 50 cents. Did you know you can make a bubble maker for $40? They were really high-end components, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Made of gold.
Had to have one, had the lights, had the bubbles. It was cool. She liked it. I think she's maybe got $40 worth of joy as 9 days have gone on and I have bubble marks all over my ceiling. But other than that, that stunk. But the show itself, absolutely. I would say everyone should go to Disney on Ice. If they do well this year, I would imagine it would be better. But last year, just skating. This year, all the other additions, it was pretty cool.
They said, let's turn it up. We're going to crank this experience to 11, Cirque du Soleil Disney style.
They had 2 cats climb on this corner piece of the stage on a large bendy rod. I don't know how often they replace these, but it seemed extremely dangerous.
This is a scenario where you say these 2 cats, and this could have genuinely been cats. It's Disney.
2 people.
Okay, so
2 people. No cats. 2 people. 2 people climb up this pole. They sit on it, kind of, sort of. They buckle in, and they're basically, imagine a rod sitting right on their butt, and they're sitting on a stool. So they let down these big glow-in-the-dark deals, and they start swinging from side to side, throwing their weight forward, throwing their weight back, way over the audience, way back, way over the audience.
Okay.
They start spinning.
I'm in. I'm excited.
I mean, it was an absolute, circus performance, and you should go.
All right. Well, I'm kind of sold now.
Yeah.
Are they... So this thing, does it travel or is it...
So imagine the scene, okay? Moana. Everyone's seen Moana.
You're saying Moana, right?
She rides around on the boat. She's got the crazy lava monster. So the crazy addition is, do you know in the Olympics where they started, I think it was a couple years ago, maybe 2 Olympics ago, they have that insane projector experience where they
they can project onto the floor and it doesn't look like it gets shadowed.
It's insane. They brought that into the experience where the entire wall is a movie backdrop. So they did the floor and the wall, Moana riding around on her, whatever you call, small little sailboat. Mm-hmm. And you know the scene where they split the water?
Yeah.
So on the ice is the water split. And on the wall is the lava monster. And he is in full HD, leaning forward, rah, making all of his noise. And I'm like, this is the craziest, coolest thing I've ever seen. If I was a kid, my mind would be blown.
I was going to say, how did your daughter respond to this experience?
Probably not even as excited as I was. I mean, it was quite a lot to take in. And as you go down, it's the scene where she's going to put the little stone
heart,
on his nose.
the heart back in.
So imagine there's a real life chick, projector floor, crazy lava monster, as tall as
holding
the
up
building.
A green glowing doober.
She drives the little deal down, walks over towards the wall. The thing faces her, and she acts like she puts the stone on the nose, and I'm mind blown. I'll have to show you the video. I mean, it really is.
So you videoed this.
Oh, yeah.
You can't.
Oh, I was in there live streaming, in there showing all my neighbors. Here we go. Here it is for you, too. And you.
Right.
Yeah.
When we were kids, you remember how they said, no live video feed, no anything like that? Do you think that is not as big a deal now because it's basically free advertising for their experience?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You think all those people ripping off Joe Rogan episodes, you think of all the little plugs from sporting events.
Right.
All it does is make the sport bigger.
Right. Here we are talking about, Disney on Ice, and I mean, we could even show half of your footage.
I will show you this shot in there. You have to see it. It's intense. I mean, it literally, whoever thought, you know what we should do? We should put that lava monster on the wall and then pretend that we talked to it.
Right. Which is funny because you have to imagine that the brainstorming moment when, Walter comes in and goes, guys, new plan. We're going to make the monster real. He's going to be up on the wall. It's going to be interactive. You guys saw the Olympics. And everyone goes, no way, man. That's not happening. Or do you think they're all in? They're like, that's the next thing. We're absolutely in on this.
I wouldn't doubt that they were. The moment that they saw the ice thing, I would imagine they've been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
But last year, there was a set against the wall. So where they're all coming out of is there was a set where, props and things where they could stand on,
sure,
walk upstairs. This year, there was an element to where they kind of sort of used it, but it was basically a big movie screen. So you had a wall that they kind of came in and out of.
And after all of that is done, they're like, you know what else we need? Trampolines and dudes on poles.
Yeah. I'm just telling you. I mean, like I kind of forgot to mention that, but the projector experience was through every one of the themes, and they had it ingrained with everything that you were watching. So when Aladdin was going on and they were doing the flying carpet deal,
Going through Agrabah and all
they
that.
were showing you those scenes in the background while these two are dancing, and it might even just make it to where they don't have to be as good of dancers as well, because there's a whole lot to watch. But I will say that they upped their game. Their talent was much better. The one that we watched last year, there was like 4 falls. Wah, wah.
Oh yeah, those are the ones where like you immediately feel embarrassed for the person that's butt on the ice.
Yeah, but this year no one fell. Some really good dancers, a little bit of acrobatics. I'm telling you, it's worth the price of admission. Don't buy the bubbles.
Sold. You had me at don't.
But I will say that if you've ever bought a bubble machine, it's a pretty good bubble machine.
Really?
It's a pretty good bubble machine.
Is it a good bubble machine because of the bubble juice that they used or because of the actual machine?
No, I refilled it. It literally blows bubbles the entire time you push the button, as opposed to most bubble machines that pretend to blow bubbles, but like kind of do and then kind of don't.
And then dribble down the front of it?
Yeah, this one actually blows bubbles. She runs from me around the house, and you can chase her because there's a stream of bubbles. A trail everywhere. I mean, it's a good bubble machine. It's just not $40 good.
Or maybe it is. Maybe that's exact. If you want quality bubble machines, you pay $40.
Oh no, this thing's still breaking soon. I mean, it's still out for the count. Yeah.
To be continued. We'll tell you. We'll update you when the bubble machine goes out.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna stick around, I have to say. Anyway, this wraps it up for today's episode. I appreciate you guys listening. Please like and subscribe and watch some other videos. We've been podcasting for a couple weeks now. We're going to keep it going. If you got any comments or anything you want to add to the bottom, discussions or things that we should go over, feel free. Let us know.